41% of female athletes experience leaking during their sport, and among powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters, that percent increases to above 50. That's 1 in 2. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are things you can do right now that will help you keep lifting heavy and enjoying the activities you desire without leaking. In this video, we are going to cover what causes your leaking and 2 things you can do right now to help stop it from happening. This leaking is also known as stress urinary incontinence. Stress urinary incontinence is simply a mismatch in pressure and happens when the pelvic floor muscles are too weak to control the intra-abdominal pressure that some activities will cause, which results in leaking. Now, what the heck is intra-abdominal pressure and why should I care about it? I'm glad you asked. Let me introduce you to your abdominal cavity. At the top, you have your diaphragm. At the bottom, you have your pelvic floor. In the back is your spine, in the front are your abdominal muscles, and in the middle are your lungs. Together, these things create and manage your intra-abdominal pressure. This pressure is super important, and it's what helps to stiffen your spine when you brace during a heavy lift, and is a big part of what helps you clear your throat when you cough. It also has a huge role in helping women deliver babies. Now, complications can happen when this pressure increases to a level that your muscles aren't strong enough to manage. The pelvic floor is comprised of a group of muscles, a couple of which are super important in controlling the flow of urine. When the pressure inside your abdominal cavity increases, it pushes on your bladder. Now, typically, your pelvic floor muscles contract to ensure that the increased pressure doesn't cause any leaking. But say you've had a baby. Things like childbirth can really weaken your pelvic floor muscles. When your muscles are weak, they aren't able to counteract high levels of pressure. It's all a game of balance. If you increase the abdominal pressure above what your muscles can handle, you're going to leak. But there are things you can do right now to better manage that intra-abdominal pressure and decrease your leaking. There are 2 main variables you can target to take control over your leaking. They are strength and pressure. If you decrease the pressure on your bladder, your muscles don't have to work as hard, and therefore you decrease your risk of leaking. Here are 2 ways you can decrease your intra-abdominal pressure with activity. Using a weight belt with lifting increases your pressure by 10%. So if you're experiencing your leaking when lifting with a weight belt, try going without it. Sometimes just removing the belt is enough to decrease that pressure to something you can better manage. Another thing you can play around with is your breathing. Performing a Valsalva while lifting increases your intra-abdominal pressure by 2 to 3 times the pressure that is experienced with free breathing. So stop holding your breath with activity. Try breathing out during the hardest part of the lift to help decrease the amount of intra-abdominal pressure your pelvic floor has to work against. The other variable you can manipulate to decrease your leaking is strength. The 2 areas of importance are your pelvic floor and your lower abdominal muscles. The pelvic floor is comprised of a group of muscles, and like any other muscles, they respond to strengthening. A lot of people are familiar with the kegel. Now, this is a good place to start, but if you are a power lifter, Olympic weightlifter, CrossFit athlete, or just an active mom wanting to jump on the trampoline and chase your kiddos around, kegels probably won't get you where you want to be. In order to get these muscles stronger, you first need to work on motor control. Now, you can start with the kegel to figure out how to contract your pelvic floor muscles. The pelvic floor muscles are programmed to automatically contract right before a movement occurs. So that's your next step. You want to perform your kegel right before you start whatever movement is bothering you. Let's say it's double unders. Now you kegel and then you double under. Still leaking? That's okay. Now we just have to modify to an exercise that is similar, but that you can perform successfully without leaking. Maybe that's single unders, or maybe it's a hop. Once you find the exercise that you can do successfully, practice there. Kegel and hop, kegel and hop, kegel and hop, and repeat just until the point where you feel like you just might leak, but you don't. Then rest. You want to work up until that threshold and rest. Work up until that threshold and rest. This is how you can build that reflexive strength of the pelvic floor. The other area to focus on is your lower abdominals. One of your lower abdominals, called the transverse abdominis, has been shown to contract along with the pelvic floor. So in strengthening this muscle, you will be strengthening the pelvic floor also. Some great exercises to target this muscle are dead bugs, Palloff presses, and leg raises. The key is performing a posterior pelvic tilt with these exercises to help ensure the lower abdominals are engaged. Try performing 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions to help create strength to this area. Now, for the Palloff press, stand with a band or cable anchored out to your side at chest height. Grab the end and bring it to the center of your chest. Now engage through your lower abdominals by rolling your hips under. Hold this position while you press the band straight out and back in. You should feel this in your lower abdominals. To perform a dead bug, first lay on your back. Now bring your knees up over your hips and roll your hips under to engage your lower abdominals. It should feel like your lower back is pressing down into the ground. Hold that, lower one leg and then bring it back up. Now alternate to the other leg and repeat. If this is too hard, you can start with your feet on the ground and lift up one at a time. Finally, for the leg raises, I like to do them while hanging. You will need a pull-up bar or something like that. Hang onto the bar and let your legs hang down. Now think about rolling your hips under to engage the lower abdominals. You can lift both legs up at the same time, or you can alternate and lift one up at a time. If this is still too hard, you can perform it with your knees bent. So there you have it, a few ways to decrease your pressure and a few ways to increase your strength. This combination is extremely powerful and effective in conquering your leaking. So give it a try and don't put up with your leaking any longer. And if you like this video and learned something helpful, help someone else by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. This allows more people just like you to find help and receive solid information that can help transform their situation. If you still have questions, want a little more guidance, and are in the Phoenix area, hit me up. I'd love to answer any of your questions and help create a pathway for you to stop leaking. Here are 2 ways you can decrease your intra-abdominal pressure with activity. Here are 2 ways.